What's the most blatant lie you've seen in a commercial? Story 1. KFC had one showing how their meal was cheaper than cooking yourself. Two kids gathered the ingredient from a grocery store and calculated the total, except they weren't adjusting for the fact that they were buying enough stuff to make the meal several times over. You don't need sack of flour to bake a single biscuit. Number 1 movie in America. Sure thing, Sherlock Gnomes. Story 2, those bonsai pools for kids where they Photoshop tiny children into the pool to make it seem like it's 4 times the size it really is. It's blatant false advertising, and I don't know how they get away with it. Someone compiled a bunch of these in an album Hey Race an article on it. Story 3, I actually reported an advert to the ASA here in the UK. Sillet Bang is a cleaning product with a charismatic frontman called Barry Scott. He's like a game show host who tries to sell you spray bottles full of bleach. Their advert said, verbatim limescale is just calcium that sticks. Then showed a demonstration by Barry Scott of him dropping a piece of pure calcium into a tank of what was purported to be the cleaning product. Watch what happens we drop this calcium into Sillet Bang. Of course, it fizzes and dissolves. Ta-da. Amazing. I pointed out that not only are limescale and calcium completely different things, but a piece of calcium would do exactly the same in a tank of water. The advert was removed from the air, and the company was fined. Story for the most recent Apple iPad commercial I've seen, where the teenage girl is laying in the backyard, and her neighbor says something like, "What kind of computer is that?" And the girl says, "What's a computer? This commercial drives me bonkers." I don't believe for 1 second that the girl doesn't know what a computer is. Story 5, fix your credit. Buy the home of your dreams. Drive the car you have always wanted. My score is almost 800. How am I still living with my mother? Story 6, there was this one sugar wax kit infomercial that showed numerous shots of people getting their legs waxed with it. And at one point, the lady selling it says, "And it doesn't hurt," with barely a straight face like, come on, everyone knows waxing hurts. Story 7, in razor commercials, women always have clean, silk smooth legs and just gently caress the blade over their flesh to, I guess, show how you are supposed to use it. Story 8, models wearing false eyelashes and mascara commercial ads. It says right at the bottom in tiny letters, enhanced with false lashes. What's the point? You literally cannot see how the mascara is working at all. Story 9, according to the Ionic Breeze commercial from the early 2000s, you don't have to move the air to clean it. And they did a pretty neat demonstration with a smoke-filled plexiglass box. According to the Orec commercials, you do. One of those is a lying liar. Edit Ionic Pro to Ionic Breeze because my memory is limited to Google search results. Story 10, if it wasn't for Life Alert, I would be sitting here. Well, no kidding. Of course, you wouldn't be sitting there on that day doing an interview for Life Alert without Life Alert. Story 11, any shampoo commercial that shows damaged hairs getting fixed. Hair is dead cells, for crying out loud. Nothing can fix the damage. Only thing shampoos can do is clean your hair and scalp. If you really want to get better hair, eat healthy. The damaged ones will fall off like all hairs do, and better hair will grow. Story 12, Sillet Bang. Limescale is mostly calcium. No. Limescale is mostly calcium carbonate. There's a very important difference. It's like saying salt is mostly sodium. Barry Scott. Story 13, a Brexit advert played in the UK. It showed a side-by-side view of a trip to the hospital within the EU on the left and out the EU on the right. If we stay in the EU, the old woman will die. Because of immigrants, something Brexit will do nothing about. Foreigners are the cause of all our problems, and definitely not our underfunded NHS. Story 14, I saw a commercial for some ratcheting type screwdriver. They had a guy trying to use a regular screwdriver. He didn't place the tip into the screw head and twist. It was more of a wild stabbing motion. Story 15, this product searches the deep web. No, it doesn't. The deep web is by definition unsearchable. If you mean the dark web, still probably not, as most of that is logged behind login prompts. Story 16, I'm a gun owner, but I have to say, just watch any NRA commercial, and it's just a bunch of plain bull that other gun owner eat up. No one's going to take your guns away, no. Your AR-15 and 9mm guns ain't keeping the government in check. No, you don't need a Barrett 50 calories to defend yourself. I sure as would love to have one, but saying it's for protection is just plain bull. Story 17, the Cascade commercial, where the husband is shoving crusty dishes cemented with food straight into the dishwasher. The wife is shocked to find they're actually clean after using Cascade. Yeah, right, all those years spent trying to get my partner to pre-wash before the dishwasher. And here comes Cascade with their BS claims. Story 18-1, for all the British commuters out there. There's this radio ad for GWR saying how some kids went on holiday and all was fine. And the people who decided to drive instead of take the train were stuck in traffic and miserable. My experience of GWR is trains late, stopping for no reason and having to stand half the time, and overpriced as, Why would it get the train when you could make the journey 5 times and the fuel cost would still be less than a train ticket? Story 19, Purdue chicken, trying to show that they keep their chickens in these pristine barns where they have plenty of space and are not overcrowded abused. I don't know how you could put that out to the public as truth and sleep at night. This is the commercial I was thinking of. Story 20, guy goes to brush his teeth. Opens mirror door, my pillow guy, standing on other side of wall guy, excited to see him. Anyone else in the situation is reaching for their sock-covered bat. Story 21, that Coke Zero tastes exactly the same as regular Coke. No, it does not. Tastes more like regular Coke than the diet stuff, but still only a pale imitation. Story 22, there was a commercial for Intel, maybe 15 years ago, who literally said that your internet speed would improve if your computer was equipped with their latest processor. The worst part is that it was very effective with computer illiterate people. Story 23, not me, but my mom, who is an esthetician, saw a commercial for foot cream saying that it penetrates 10 layers of skin. Anyone who knows anything about the skin can tell you why that's complete bullshit. Story 24, every commercial that tells you to call in the next 5 minutes. Those ads pay for runtime in a specific time slot. It's a pre-made commercial, so unless they have their operators clued in on every commercial time and channel, it's BS. Story 25, everything I see in Pinterest. Have cellulite, try baking soda. Pimples, try baking soda. Stained teeth, baking soda. Want to know how I lost 10 kilograms in a week? Baking soda. Counts as an ad, right? Story 26, 80s kid here. Gotcha guns, the commercial showed these perfect splotches of paint that were supposed to be machine washable. In practice, if it was too cold, they didn't splatter. They just kind of stuck to you looking like an odd crayon. To hot, and they fell apart in the air. Perfect temp, they kind of sort of made a paint splotch. Mostly just stuck to you, and while the color did wash out, they left an oil mark where they hit. Didn't matter what color shirt you were wearing post-wash, you could always see where they hit. And that oil seemed to bleed instantly into clothing while leaving the color behind. Edited to add the refills were expensive as well. We were kind of poor, so set of those guns basically being my big birthday present one year turned into the biggest letdown. Story 27, those commercials for Beezid, Deal Dash, and similar bidding sites. I got this for $20.83. Bids go up by 0.1. What they don't tell you is that the bids all cost $40 or $60 apiece. Story 28, I think the one with a lie that probably hurt the most people is the one with the guy at the rehab clinic. His line of "I used to be an addict, but now I'm not" gets me riled up every time I hear it. Like, no dude, you were still an addict. Going to rehab doesn't suddenly make you not an addict anymore. Just like going to AA doesn't make a person not an alcoholic. You will always be an addict, whether or not you are currently using, and by saying, "and now I'm not," you're giving ignorant people with no real knowledge of addiction or its hold on people a false belief that visiting your center will just make all of their problems disappear forever. Story 29, not sure if this counts, but I once saw a medicine commercial that went like this: name is not to be used by people with diarrhea. Name side effects include diarrhea. Story 30, any diet pill supplement that says you don't even have to change your habits for it to work. Diet pills very rarely support your metabolism digestion to a noticeable degree if you don't change your diet and exercise habits. And they also claim it's a special formula when the supplement has been on the market for decades. I figure if a requirement for it to work is diet and exercise change, then change your diet and exercise and just skip the diet pill that might help. Story 31, those Chevy Malibu commercials with real people, not actors. One person looks at the car and says, "Looks like an Audi or a BMW." There's no way the Chevy Malibu looks like an Audi or a BMW. Story 32, not a commercial, but the back of a Coca-Cola 12-pack. It said that you didn't need to drink water or sports drinks while exercising. You could drink a Coke instead because Coke is made out of water and tastes better. Story 33, head-on. Apply directly to the forehead head-on. Apply directly to the forehead head-on. Apply directly to the forehead. Story 34, Chevy once ran a commercial for one of their trucks saying the bed is stronger because it's made of steel. Ford started to make the F-150 out of aluminum. They demonstrated this by dropping a toolbox on the bed. The toolbox ends up piercing the bed, leaving a hole. In the next scene, they moved the toolbox to cover the hole it made and kept going on about how steel is better than aluminum. Story 35, that bullshit ad campaign by CRA, Corn Refiners Association, trying to downplay HFCS infamy at the height of its scrutiny, trying to say that cane sugar is the same thing. Oh, well, bullshit. Story 36, red copper pans. One non-stick. They advertised that you could cook with pretty much nothing after seasoning the pan. I did that and my eggs came out orange. 2, it advertises that it never scratches. My mom watched the commercial after we already had it and showed me that was bullshit. They moved some macaroni in the pan, and you could see 2 huge scratches in it. That thing, not sold in stores as seen on TV, in stores. Story 37, I was watching this shitty commercial where it said that a foil-like suit could make you lose weight via sweating. It even said that you could lose weight while sleeping. The ad was so blatant in the way it was trying to con its costumers. They said like if you run in this suit, you'll lose more weight. Oh really? It baffles me how people fall for this type of thing. Story 38, 5-hour energy. Great tasting hours of energy now. No crash later, which probably tastes better than that goop that I have to pinch my nose to swallow. Story 39, the iPhone 3G was advertised as twice the speed, half the price. It was in fact neither of those things. There is a specific exception in truth in advertising, where you can say false things as long as it is sufficiently obvious they're false. I.e. Red Bull gives you wings. Apple successfully defended themselves from a false advertising charge by arguing that no reasonable person could possibly believe it was in fact faster and cheaper. Story 40, the recent Chevy ads with the real people, not actors, where all of the actors pretend not to know what's happening. They have no idea that the cheap Chevy isn't a BMW or an Audi. Story 41, last year, during Australia's gay marriage survey, there was an ad campaign for the NO voters which stated, and I quote, 86 of all children adopted by the same parents are abused at home. Needless to say, the ad was only played for 2 days before getting pulled. Story 42, not technically a lie, but intentionally misleading, proudly made in North America with a picture of the contiguous United States. North America, huh? Yeah, those cars are made in Mexico. Story 43, there's a radio advert for some car company that states, did you know that people would rather go to the dentist than get their car serviced? Just no. Story 44, Wells Fargo's, we're rededicating ourselves to you. If you believe that there's S Bridge in San Francisco made entirely out of Golden Gates that ID like to sell you. Story 45, let's leave the EU so we can fund the NHS. Actual elected MPs reaching for new and absurd levels of advertising bullshit, because chaos and confusion is better than any kind of certainty. Story 46, not the most blatant, but one of the most misleading. There's an advert on TV which says train to teach and get an extra $26,000 bursary. They failed to mention that this is only for male applicants specializing in maths. As a female training to be a primary school teacher, it's so frustrating having to argue against the "you have it easy with all that money" comment I get all the time. Story 47, about a dishwashing liquid. It's a super concentrate, so you use less, and because you use less, it's better for the environment. That's not how concentrates work. Story 48, not really a lie, but deceptive wording. People who switch save 15 or more. Well, duh. If they wouldn't have saved any money, they wouldn't have switched. Story 49, there was a commercial about gloves with which you could pick up meat straight from a whore barbecue. In lower right corner, really small, it said this was performed by stuntsman. Do not try this at home. At least they were honest. Story 50, a 5-hour energy commercial from a couple of years ago, experiencing an energy letdown during the day. Just drink a 5-hour Energetum. It's normal for there to be parts of the day where your energy level is lower. It sucks, but that's life. It doesn't mean you need to load up with all the caffeine and God knows what else in one of those drinks. It means you're a normal human being. We've already heard so many stories about people dying from drinking too many energy drinks or having too much caffeine. A commercial like that has the potential to do damage to people. Story 51, not a commercial, but an ad. They changed the white balance. It's such a lie, and when I call them out on it, they ban me. Ridiculous. Liar Snow teeth whitening. Story 52, that commercial for a teeth whitening product that asks if your teeth pass the tissue test. Such a bullshit standard. Normal teeth are not bleach white, which tissues are way to move the goalpost to an impossible to naturally reach standard. Story 53, for me lately, it's the Stash investing app ads. For a long time, investing was only for the wealthy with thousands of dollars at their disposal. No, it wasn't. Having a few thousand to invest in something low risk doesn't make you wealthy, but you don't need thousands to invest. I've started investments with 200 before. I hate their frat boy sounding CEO trying to sell his glorified slot machine investment tool like it's the first one to cater to the working G-class and undereducated. We skin the dark web globally. Story 54, hair waxing commercials. Every one of them. I used to see a commercial on PBS that said the body couldn't tell the difference between high fructose corn syrup and regular sugar. That is literally not true. The body cannot process fructose in the way it processes glucose. Fructose gets converted to fat stores much easier and scars your liver. Fructose is sweeter than glucose, so that's why high fructose corn syrup is used more than straight sucrose, which is a combination of fructose and glucose. Story 55. There was a commercial for an anti-inflammatory drug called Celebrex, and it showed an older gentleman walking on the grass. The narrator starts off with its simple physics: a body at rest tends to stay at rest, while a body in motion tends to stay in motion. They were suggesting that the medication would allow for easier mobility, which would keep them moving even more. Not sure if they were trying to be funny cute or if they were actually misusing the explanation for inertia. Not necessarily a lie, but it always bugged me, hee hee. Story 56. So, not actually a lie, but kind of fits in the spirit of this. When Rock Band first came out, I played the out of it. The only problem was all my chairs seemed too tall to play the drum kit. I'm not a real drummer at all, but it always felt awkward because I was sitting too high. So, I went looking for a low stool. Turns out Best Buy was selling cheap drum stools in the game, all right next to the Rock Band sets, which was handy. The hilarious part, though, was they were labeled on the box from the factory as compatible with Rock Band. Compatible? It was just a chair. You didn't plug it in or anything. How could it not be compatible? Story 57. There's been a Facebook ad playing on Hulu recently. It's basically some bullshit saying we're sorry we sold your data by not actually taking any blame for the situation. It's disgusting saccharine bullshit that really infuriated me. Facebook and Zuckerberg, your 3-year-old will be able to do this. Story 58. These Nokia Lumia 920 ads, praising the camera quality and image stabilization on the phone, are clearly seen to be Steadicams in the advertisement themselves. Story 59. Red Bull will give you Yings. There was actually a lawsuit over this. If ID thought to hold on to my receipt from a few years ago, I could have gotten a free case of Red Bull. Story 60. When fast food companies advertise their new flaming hot menu item, with an ad featuring people taking a bite and then fanning their face, you then buy the thing, only to find it's mildly spicy at best, like only people with the lowest spice tolerance might find as hot. It's such a blatant lie. You can't advertise something as hot and then sell something that tickles at best. It's like the difference between Shin Cup hot noodles and a Bombay Bad Boy pot noodle. Shin Cup wins hands down on the spice front. Story 61. Postmates make up to 500-week delivering with Postmates. I don't know how they're calculating this. At 4 delivery, you'd have to make 375 deliveries a week, about 53 to 54 deliveries a day. Lies. Story 62. Jeep commercials once claimed their Jeeps were genetically engineered to be better. This was back in 2011, 2012. I saw 2 commercials with that claim. Story 63. A balanced part of complete breakfast. IDK who your parents were, but the only part of that complete breakfast I had was the bowl, cereal, and the spoon. Sometimes we had milk. Story 64. There's a DirecTV ad where a woman throws all of her boyfriend stuff out of the window and then calm sits down to watch TV. Like what the no? Also periods are not blue. Story 65. The My Pillow guy. If you watch closely, you'll see how he scrunches the pillow with his one hand while plumping up the front with his other hand to make the pillow appear bigger, fuller. They're just regular pillows, nothing special about them. Then to later find out that all his sales were going up his nose made it that much worse. Story 66. I recently saw a tampon commercial that said the tampon was up to 100 effective. A piece of toilet paper could be up to 100 effective to, you know. Story 67. Sprint. In every godmother bullshit commercial those cunts put out about having good service, them literally the worst. R.C. Wiley once ran an ad that's several times. And this is a direct quote. Absolutely everything is on sale, then real quick at the end said, a very few things not included in sale, can't have it both ways. Story 68. Helpful Honda guys. Saw them as our Cub Scouts were selling popcorn. Asked if they could take a picture with the boys. They said no. So the helpful Honda guys that can't even take a minute to take a picture with some Cub Scouts.